Hey, I'm Ton Vin, host of Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. Seattle's waterfront got an $800 million makeover to create a vibrant public space. But is it a tourist trap? I'll tell you where to get a good bite with braving the crowds. Listen to Seattle Eats on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bellevue, Washington, Seattle's neighbor to the east, is having a bit of an identity crisis. For decades, it's been like the younger sibling trying to get out from under Seattle's shadow.
Over the early parts of my tenure here, I like to say that Bellevue was a little bit like an awkward teenager.
For years, the mall was the heart of Bellevue. People still talk about it that way on TikTok.
It's like you took a mall and you were like, I need that mall to be a city.
It was a place known for its big box stores, chain restaurants, and car-centered culture, where Seattleites would go to take pictures with Santa Claus and drive down Snowflake Lane. But in the last decade or so, things have started to shift.
And I think now we're kind of hitting our early 20s. We've gone through our growth spurt. People are starting to recognize us kind of as independent from our family.
And now, Bellevue is planning for another major change. Workers are putting finishing touches on the long-awaited link across Lake Washington. When it's finished next year, two of the largest cities in our region will be connected by light rail for the first time. I'm Joshua McNichols. This is Booming, a podcast about the economic forces shaping our lives here in the Pacific Northwest. Bellevue's older sibling, Seattle, has been in the limelight for a long time. Is it Bellevue's time to shine? That's coming up.
Dad, I was wondering if you'd be interested in joining Maris and me Friday night. We're dying to try the new rib joint that's opened on Bellevue Way. I understand that if the onion rings aren't as big as your head, you get them for free.
I wanted to figure out how the new light rail could change how we experience Bellevue, so I met up with Jesse Canedo. He's the Chief Economic Development Officer for the city of Bellevue, and he's been working on economic development for Bellevue for the past decade, ever since he moved here. Jesse knew right when he visited the area for the first time that this is where he belongs.
So I moved up for the job in 2015, having never been to the Seattle area, really having only Fraser as my reference. I came up to visit on a sunny April day in 2015. My former boss took me on a drive up Lake Washington Boulevard through Kirkland, and as you do in the Northwest when it's sunny and over 60, everybody was out biking, playing volleyball, tanning at the parks in Kirkland, and I was like, oh my God, this is paradise.
Yeah.
How fast can I move here? And have lived in Bellevue ever since.
We sat down in a little courtyard in the heart of downtown Bellevue, right near the new light rail station. I started the interview by asking him, what does he think Bellevue wants to be when it grows up?
Oh, that is such a hard question because every Bellevuer will tell you something different. You could hear 1,000 different ideas from we want it to be the life sciences capital of the world to we want it to be like Disneyland for the outdoors and kind of everything in between. There's a whole lot of stuff that people dream about here.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes it fun because there are so many big dreamers.
For a long time, Seattle has been where many young people want to go, even if they work in Bellevue. You know, Seattle had nightlife, it had music, art, it had pro sports. You know, it was hip. Mm-hmm. Bellevue, at least in the past, did not have that reputation. Soon, light rail will connect Bellevue to Seattle. Will light rail help make Bellevue hip?
That's a really interesting choice of words. So I would say the 2-line already is getting quite popular between Bellevue and Redmond, but crossing the bridge will make it easier for people to, again, access the things that they're looking for at that particular time. So people coming over from Seattle, it's going to be the train to the outdoors. I love the 1-line as the spine through Seattle, but the east side is where you can access Marymore Park and the Velodrome and the outdoor concerts and when Cirque du Soleil comes every year. And from Marymore Village station, you can access the East Lake Sammamish Trail, which is incredible. If you have not biked on it or walked on it, it's just spectacular. It feels like you're on vacation without going on vacation. You have access to Mercer Slough at the South Bellevue Park and Ride, which is larger than the Arboretum. Most folks don't realize that, but it is just a piece of oasis and nature with a working blueberry farm and a farm stand right accessible to the light rail station. So it's really going to change the way Eastsiders, Bellevuers, Seattleites access the outdoors from my perspective.
Seattle has more jobs, more people. It generates more money for the region. Historically, it's been more powerful than Bellevue. How will light rail shift the economic power balance between Seattle and Bellevue?
Seattle and Bellevue and all of our neighbors, we're a part of the same regional economic family. Bellevue needs Seattle to do well. Seattle needs Bellevue to do well. We need Federal Way to do well. We need Everett to do well. It's all part of this regional economy. People who live in Bellevue may work in the South End. People who live in Seattle may work in Bellevue. It's all part of a rising tide, lifts all boats. But with Bellevue in particular, the 2 line is making us much more appealing to employers who want particularly those mobility options for their workers. In my 10 years here, I have seen the shift from employers coming in and kind of being open to just about any location to now their questions really center on where are the train stations and how close can I get to those? Because that is really important for their employees. So a lot of our major employers are now making their choices based on mobility options. But with regards to how Bellevue and Seattle are going to be positioning, Seattle's always going to be the core city. That is never going to change. Seattle is the historic center of the Puget Sound. It is where a lot of our historic infrastructure institutions are. Bellevue is going to be a nice complement to that as a second city, as a second downtown for the region. We want to add services, add experiences that complement what's happening in Seattle, not try and steal.
You know, one part of Bellevue's reputation that's maybe a little bit harder to shake is it's more expensive as a place to live. Even with the changes coming from light rail, people perceive Bellevue still as a place for wealthier people. The average home price here is higher than it is in Seattle, significantly, and incomes are higher here too. How would you respond to someone who still had that idea of Bellevue in their heads? What is wrong about that, and what don't we understand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I get some of this as well, not just through work, but also from some of my friends who live on the Seattle side. So Bellevue is a more expensive place to live, partially because of the level of amenities and the school district that are here. So people really value living in Bellevue. And I think about 80% of people who work in Bellevue live outside the city. And that's true for a lot of our neighboring communities as well. So we are working on things like affordable housing. So we have our Office of Housing, led by Bianca Siegel, that is working to accelerate the development of housing that is attainable for folks who are not making a top Microsoft salary. I do think that the Bellevue in general, within the region, has an outdated brand. So a lot of folks, as you're saying, they remember maybe an 80s or a 90s version of Bellevue that for them, in their minds, is really, it's wealthy white people, which that has not been true for 10 to 20 years now. A lot of folks that have migrated into Bellevue and been part of the city's boom have been from other parts of the world. There are a lot of East Asian, South Asian, Latin American residents that have come here, including myself. And I think part of what attracts us to Bellevue is that it meets our needs for family, for friendship, for community. And as a municipal organization, we're doing a lot to invest in cross-cultural programming, community programming, linguistic services to make sure that the services we're providing reflect the 45% of Bellevuers who are foreign-born and the 52% who are people of color. So I would encourage those people who have that 80s white Bellevue in their mind to come visit with me. I'll take you to the breweries, I'll take you for wine, and we'll just hang out and see the new Bellevue.
I know you're spending a lot of time thinking about the future of Bellevue. You are also a science fiction fan. I want to bring these two things together. First, real quick, what kind of science fiction stories do you read?
I love everything from the classics. So I've read all of the original Dune novels. I grew up on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and all of everything in between. So I love it all.
So how does that love of science fiction feed your imagination about what Seattle and Bellevue could become in the future?
Oh my God, so many things from sci-fi. That's actually one of the reasons when I was growing up, there was a period where I wanted to live in Seattle. Not so much Seattle, in Redmond. All I knew was that Microsoft was doing software and computers, and I needed to live in Redmond, Washington, and work for Microsoft. And I ended up living in Bellevue because this region is literally building the future of humanity. That was one of the things that really drew me in. And, everything from what's going on with Starlink and SpaceX and Firefly and the millions of satellites that are getting produced here in our region. I'm just excited about how all of that will improve opportunity for humanity and improve equity and access. And if there are ways that I can help support humanity getting farther into the stars, that's what I want to do in the next iteration of my career.
How does that dream for, more space exploration change how the city will actually look and feel and be experienced?
So a lot of that's going to be in our next wave of development, let's say in Bellevue or in the region, where we're providing collectively more space for innovation, more incubators. We've got in Bellevue our new Startup 425 program that is helping early stage entrepreneurs figure out their ideas and how to take that into a scalable, sustainable business. And we've talked about, are there opportunities to do cohorts that are focused on life sciences or environmental management or space exploration? So I think there's a lot more coming in that area.
So when we're talking now, we're talking, maybe 10 years in the future, maybe 15. Say you were to time travel to Bellevue in 200 years from now, what would Bellevue look like? What would it feel like if your dreams came true?
So I'm drawn pretty heavily on some sci-fi material like Foundation and also The Expanse. So in the future, if I had a magic wand and could bring all these things to life, Bellevue would be like the capital of a united Earth. We'd be the home to like a space tether, like the space elevator that takes you up to the orbital dock where you can get onto your Starliner that takes you to the moon or to Mars. And so I would love for Bellevue to be at the center of that.
What a vision. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming over. I always love having guests over in Bellevue.
That's it for Booming. Thank you so much for listening. If you have a question about the economy that you want us to answer, email us at booming@kuow.org. Also, special thanks to those of you who are donating to the show. We couldn't do it without you. If you want to donate, go to kuow.org/booming. Thanks. Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. Booming is hosted by Monica Nicholsberg and me, Joshua McNichols. We'll see you next week.
On the latest episode of Sound Politics, the vast majority of Americans say that money in politics is a threat to democracy. Seattle came up with a novel solution. Give everyone money to donate to candidates. Now, is that working? We'll talk about it ahead of the August 5th primary, when voters will decide if the Democracy Voucher program should stick around. That's on the latest Sound Politics, wherever you get your podcasts.